The morning light filtered through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as Catherine, Princess of Wales, sat quietly in her favorite reading chair. The soft golden rays illuminated the pages of a book she wasn't really reading. Her mind wandered to the past months, a journey that had tested every fiber of her being. The woman who had once commanded the attention of millions with her radiant smile and effortless grace now faced her reflection with a mixture of uncertainty and quiet determination. It had been nearly 8 months since Catherine had stepped back from her royal duties. The official statement from Kensington Palace had been brief and respectful, citing personal health matters that required her full attention. What the public didn't see was the internal struggle that had been building for years beneath the surface of her seemingly perfect life. The pressure of royal life had always been immense, but something had shifted after the children grew more independent. Prince George, now a confident young man approaching his teenage years, Princess Charlotte with her spirited personality, and little Prince Louis with his infectious laughter. They had been her anchor through the most challenging times. But as they needed her less, Catherine found herself questioning who she was beyond the titles, the carefully orchestrated public appearances, and the endless stream of charitable engagements. The breaking point had come during a routine visit to a children's hospital in Manchester. As Catherine walked through the pediatric ward, greeting young patients and their families, she had felt an overwhelming wave of emptiness wash over her. The smile she offered felt hollow. Her words of comfort seemed to echo in her own ears without meaning. Standing beside a 6-year-old girl battling leukemia, Catherine had realized that somewhere along the way, she had lost touch with the genuine compassion that had once driven her passion for helping others. That evening, after returning to Kensington Palace, Catherine had sat across from William in their private sitting room. The conversation that followed would change the trajectory of their lives. With tears in her eyes, she had confessed her feelings of disconnection, her struggle with the constant scrutiny, and her fear that she was failing not just as a royal, but as a person who genuinely wanted to make a difference in the world. William, ever the supportive husband, had listened without judgment. He understood the weight of royal responsibility perhaps better than anyone. His own journey with mental health and the loss of his mother had taught him the importance of authenticity and self-care. Together, they made the difficult decision that Catherine would step back from her public duties to focus on rediscovering herself and addressing the emotional challenges she faced. The months that followed were some of the most difficult and transformative of Catherine's life. Away from the public eye, she began working with a therapist who specialized in helping high-profile individuals navigate the unique pressures of their positions. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a renowned psychologist who had worked with several members of the entertainment industry, became Catherine's guide through the complex process of healing and self-discovery. The early sessions were challenging. Catherine had spent over a decade presenting a carefully curated version of herself to the world. The idea of being vulnerable, even in the safety of a therapeutic setting, felt foreign and uncomfortable. She had been trained to always appear composed, graceful, and in control. Admitting to feelings of inadequacy and disconnection felt like a betrayal of everything she had been taught about her role. Dr. Mitchell helped Catherine understand that her feelings were not only normal, but necessary for genuine growth. They explored her childhood, her early relationship with William, and the gradual evolution of her identity from Kate Middleton, the university student, to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Through guided exercises and deep conversations, Catherine began to reconnect with a young woman who had once dreamed of making a real difference in the world. During this period, Catherine also spent considerable time with her family. Her parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, provided a grounding presence that reminded her of life before royal protocols and public expectations. At their home in Berkshire, Catherine could simply be their daughter again. She helped her mother in the garden, took long walks with her father, and enjoyed quiet dinners where the conversation flowed naturally without the weight of representing the monarchy. Her siblings, Pippa and James also played crucial roles in her healing journey. Pippa, with her own successful career and young family, reminded Catherine that there were many ways to find fulfillment and purpose. James, who had been open about his own struggles with depression, offered a unique perspective on navigating mental health challenges while maintaining public responsibilities. One particularly meaningful conversation took place during a weekend visit to the Middleton family home. Catherine and her mother were preparing dinner together, something Catherine rarely had the opportunity to do in her royal residence. As they chopped vegetables and seasoned a roast, Carol shared stories about Catherine's childhood, reminding her daughter of the curious, compassionate girl who had always been drawn to helping others. Carol recalled how young Catherine had organized neighborhood fundraisers for local animal shelters, spent hours reading to elderly residents at a nearby care home, and always stood up for classmates who were being bullied. These memories helped Catherine realize that her desire to help others hadn't been manufactured for her royal role. It had always been an integral part of who she was. As autumn arrived, Catherine began to feel subtle shifts in her perspective. The therapy sessions continued to provide valuable insights, but she also started engaging in activities that brought her genuine joy. She took up painting again, something she had loved during her university years but had abandoned due to her busy schedule. The act of creating something with her own hands, without the pressure of public scrutiny, felt liberating. She also began volunteering anonymously at a local literacy center, working with children who struggled with reading. The center's coordinator, unaware of her royal identity, simply knew her as Kate, a dedicated volunteer who showed up consistently and connected naturally with the young learners. These interactions reminded Catherine of the pure joy that came from helping others without cameras, press releases, or official recognition. William watched his wife's gradual transformation with a mixture of relief and admiration. He saw the spark returning to her eyes during their private conversations, noticed how she laughed more freely with their children, and observed her growing confidence in expressing her own thoughts and opinions about their future roles. The couple began having deeper conversations about how they wanted to approach their royal duties when Catherine felt ready to return. They discussed the possibility of being more selective about their engagements, focusing on causes that genuinely resonated with them, rather than accepting every invitation or obligation. They explored ways to bring more authenticity to their public appearances, allowing glimpses of their real personalities while still maintaining appropriate dignity. Catherine also spent time studying other public figures who had successfully balanced personal authenticity with public responsibility. She read about individuals who had faced similar challenges and emerged stronger, more purposeful, and more effective in their roles. These stories provided both inspiration and practical strategies for navigating the unique pressures of royal life. As winter approached, Catherine felt ready to begin considering her return to public life. The months of introspection had provided her with a clearer understanding of herself and her motivations. She no longer felt compelled to be perfect or to meet everyone's expectations. Instead, she had developed a genuine desire to use her platform in ways that felt meaningful and authentic to her. The decision to begin planning her return wasn't made lightly. Catherine, William, and their advisors spent weeks discussing various approaches. They wanted her comeback to feel natural and genuine rather than forced or overly orchestrated. The goal wasn't to create a media sensation, but to demonstrate real growth and renewed purpose. Catherine's first public appearance would be carefully chosen to reflect her journey and her renewed commitment to causes that mattered to her personally. The team at Kensington Palace worked closely with her to identify an opportunity that would allow her to share her story in a way that might help others facing similar challenges. As she prepared for this next chapter, Catherine felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. The woman who would soon step back into the public was fundamentally different from the one who had stepped away. She had faced her vulnerabilities, addressed her struggles, and emerged with a deeper understanding of herself and her purpose. The upcoming return wouldn't be about returning to who she had been before, but about introducing the world to who she had become through her journey of healing and self-discovery. The stage was set for a profound and inspiring return that would not only mark Catherine's reemergence into public life, but also offer hope and encouragement to countless individuals facing their own personal challenges. Her story was about to become a testament to the power of taking time for self-reflection, seeking help when needed, and emerging stronger on the other side of difficulty. The decision about Catherine's first public appearance came during a quiet Sunday morning at Emma Hall. She and William were enjoying breakfast with their children when George mentioned a news story he had read about mental health awareness in schools. The conversation that followed sparked an idea that would shape Catherine's return to public life in a way that felt both meaningful and authentic. George, now mature beyond his years, had developed a keen awareness of social issues through his education and his parents' influence. He spoke thoughtfully about classmates who struggled with anxiety and the pressure that young people faced in today's world. Charlotte added her own observations about friends who seemed sad, but didn't know how to talk about their feelings. Even Lewis, despite his young age, had noticed when his mother hadn't been around as much and had asked innocent but perceptive questions about why some people needed time to feel better. Catherine listened to her children with growing clarity about her path forward. Their natural empathy and understanding reinforced her belief that mental health awareness, particularly for young people, would be the perfect focus for her return. It was a cause that had personal meaning for her now, having gone through her own journey of healing, and it aligned with her long-standing passion for children's welfare. Over the following weeks, Catherine worked closely with her team to develop a comprehensive approach to mental health advocacy that would mark her return. They reached out to leading experts in child psychology, mental health organizations, and schools across the United Kingdom to understand the current challenges and most effective approaches to supporting young people's emotional well-being. Dr. James Harrison, a prominent child psychologist from the University of Cambridge, became a key advisor in Catherine's preparation. During their first meeting at Kensington Palace, Dr. Harrison was struck by Catherine's genuine curiosity and thoughtful questions. She wasn't simply looking for photo opportunities or surface-level involvement. She wanted to understand the complex factors affecting young people's mental health and identify meaningful ways to make a difference. Catherine immersed herself in research, reading academic papers, case studies, and first-hand accounts from young people who had struggled with mental health challenges. She was particularly moved by stories of teenagers who felt isolated and overwhelmed by academic pressure, social media comparisons, and uncertainty about their futures. Many of these accounts reminded her of her own recent struggles, just in a different context. One story that particularly resonated was that of Emma, a 16-year-old from Yorkshire who had developed severe anxiety after her parents' divorce. Emma's description of feeling like she was constantly performing for others while struggling internally struck a chord with Catherine. The young girl's eventual recovery, supported by counseling and a school-based mental health program, provided hope and practical insights that Catherine found invaluable. As Catherine delved deeper into her research, she also began connecting with organizations already working in the mental health space. She visited several facilities anonymously, observing programs and speaking with professionals about their approaches and challenges. These visits weren't official royal engagements, but rather learning opportunities that allowed her to understand the work being done without the formal protocols that might inhibit genuine conversation. At a youth center in Leeds, Catherine spent an afternoon observing a group therapy session for teenagers dealing with various mental health challenges. The facilitator, unaware of her royal identity, treated her as any other interested professional. Catherine watched as young people shared their struggles and supported each other with remarkable courage and wisdom. The authenticity of their interactions and their willingness to be vulnerable in a safe space reminded her of her own therapeutic journey. During this period, Catherine also began working with a communications team that specialized in sensitive topics. They helped her develop messaging that would be both impactful and appropriate, balancing her personal experience with her public role. The challenge was to share her journey in a way that would inspire and help others without overshadowing the broader message about mental health awareness. Sarah Thompson, a former journalist who had transitioned to public relations work focused on social causes, became Catherine's primary communications advisor. Sarah understood the delicate balance required when public figures shared personal struggles. She helped Catherine craft authentic statements that would resonate with the public while maintaining appropriate boundaries about private details. Together, they developed a strategy for Catherine's return that would unfold over several months. Rather than a single dramatic comeback, they planned a series of engagements that would gradually reintroduce Catherine to public life while building momentum around mental health awareness. The approach would be personal but not overly revealing, inspiring but not preachy. The first major decision was selecting the venue for Catherine's initial public appearance. After considering numerous options, they settled on a secondary school in Birmingham that had implemented an innovative mental health support program. The school had seen significant improvements in student well-being and academic performance after introducing counseling services, peer support groups, and teacher training in mental health awareness. Head teacher Margaret Davies was initially stunned when she received the call from Kensington Palace. Her school, while successful in its mental health initiatives, was not particularly prestigious or well-known. The choice to feature their program reflected Catherine's genuine interest in highlighting effective, practical approaches rather than high-profile institutions. Catherine spent several hours at the school before her official visit, meeting with staff and learning about their programs in detail. She was impressed by their holistic approach, which included not just counseling services, but also changes to the school environment, curriculum modifications to reduce stress, and training for teachers to recognize signs of mental health struggles. During one particularly moving conversation, Catherine spoke with Mrs. Davies about the challenges of supporting young people who were struggling while maintaining the school's academic standards and positive environment. Mrs. Davies shared how they had learned that addressing mental health actually improved academic outcomes, as students who felt emotionally supported were better able to focus on their studies. The school visit also included interactions with students who had participated in the mental health programs. Catherine was struck by their maturity and willingness to discuss their experiences. One student, Marcus, talked about how the peer support group had helped him cope with his parents' separation and the anxiety he felt about his future. Another student, Aisha, described how counseling had helped her manage perfectionist tendencies that had been causing panic attacks. These conversations reinforced Catherine's conviction that young people were eager to discuss mental health when provided with safe, supportive environments. Their openness and resilience inspired her and validated her decision to focus her return around this critical issue. As the date for Catherine's official return approached, the media began speculating about her extended absence and the nature of her comeback. Kensington Palace maintained their policy of not commenting on rumors, but the anticipation was building. Catherine felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement as she prepared to step back into the public eye. The final preparations included working with a film crew to create a video that would accompany the announcement of her return. The video would be released simultaneously with her first public appearance, providing context for her absence and explaining her renewed focus on mental health advocacy. Director Michael Roberts, known for his sensitive approach to documenting personal stories, worked closely with Catherine to create a film that felt genuine and unscripted. They filmed at various locations that had meaning for Catherine during her journey, including the gardens at Windsor Castle, where she had spent many hours in reflection, and the Literacy Center, where she had volunteered anonymously. The video included brief interviews with mental health professionals, educators, and young people, but the focus remained on Catherine's personal message about the importance of seeking help and taking time for self-care. She spoke honestly about her own experience without revealing inappropriate personal details, striking a balance that felt both relatable and appropriately dignified. Catherine's children also played a role in preparing for her return, though their involvement was carefully considered to protect their privacy. They helped her practice responses to potential questions and provided honest feedback about her planned remarks. Their input was particularly valuable because of their unique perspective as young people who had observed their mother's journey firsthand. William provided constant support throughout the preparation process, offering insights from his own experience with mental health advocacy and his understanding of public expectations. He helped Catherine anticipate potential challenges and develop responses that would be both authentic and appropriate for her role as a future queen. As the final details were confirmed, Catherine felt a deep sense of purpose that had been missing during her earlier years of royal duty. This return wasn't about resuming old routines or meeting external expectations. It was about using her platform to address an issue she now understood intimately and cared about passionately. The woman preparing to return to public life was fundamentally different from the one who had stepped away. She had faced her own vulnerability, sought help, and emerged with a clearer understanding of her purpose and potential impact. Her upcoming appearance wouldn't just mark her return to royal duties. It would signal the beginning of a new chapter in her life dedicated to authentic, meaningful work that could genuinely help others facing similar challenges. The stage was set for a return that would not only restore Catherine to her public role, but also elevate the conversation around mental health to new levels of openness and understanding. Her personal journey had prepared her to become a powerful advocate for others, and the world was about to witness the emergence of a more purposeful, authentic version of the Princess of Wales. The morning of Catherine's return dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the windows of Kensington Palace. She stood before her mirror, adjusting the simple blue dress she had chosen for the occasion. The outfit was deliberately understated, reflecting her desire to focus attention on her message rather than her appearance. Her stylist, Amanda, had learned to read Catherine's moods over the years, and today she sensed a quiet confidence that had been absent for months. Catherine's preparation that morning was different from the routine she had followed during her earlier royal engagements. Instead of a usual flurry of last-minute briefings and scheduled confirmations, she spent time in quiet reflection. She reviewed her notes one final time, but more importantly, she centered herself on the purpose behind this appearance. The car journey to Birmingham gave Catherine time to process the significance of what she was about to do. This wasn't just a return to public duty. It was her opportunity to transform personal struggle into public service. The 40-minute drive allowed her to practice her breathing exercises and remind herself of the conversations that had brought her to this moment. Rebecca Martinez, her new private secretary who specialized in mental health advocacy, accompanied Catherine on the journey. Rebecca had been carefully selected for her understanding of both royal protocol and the sensitive nature of mental health communication. During the drive, she provided final updates about the school they were visiting and the media coverage that would follow. The school had been buzzing with excitement since learning about the royal visit. Students and staff had spent weeks preparing, not just for the formalities of a royal engagement, but for meaningful conversations about mental health. The atmosphere was one of genuine anticipation rather than mere ceremony. When Catherine's car pulled up to the school entrance, she was greeted by head teacher Margaret Davies and a small group of student representatives. The initial moments were captured by photographers, but Catherine quickly moved beyond the formal photo opportunities to begin engaging with the people she had come to meet. Her first stop was the school's counseling center, where she met with the mental health team that had transformed the school's approach to student well-being. Dr. Patricia Williams, the lead counselor, had been initially nervous about meeting the princess, but Catherine's genuine questions and attentive listening quickly put her at ease. Catherine wanted to understand the practical details of how the program worked. She asked about funding challenges, training requirements for staff, and the specific techniques that had proven most effective with different age groups. Her questions revealed a depth of knowledge that impressed the professionals, who realized this wasn't a superficial visit, but a serious engagement with their work. In the counseling center, Catherine met with several students who had volunteered to share their experiences. The conversations took place in a comfortable lounge area, with students sitting in a circle alongside Catherine and the counselors. The informal setting encouraged honest dialogue that went far beyond typical royal encounter. Sarah, a 17-year-old student, talked about her struggle with social anxiety that had begun affecting her school performance and relationships. She described feeling overwhelmed by the pressure to succeed academically while maintaining social connections and planning for her future. Catherine listened intently, occasionally asking thoughtful questions that showed she understood the complexity of Sarah's experience. When Catherine shared that she too had experienced feelings of being overwhelmed by expectations and had found therapy helpful, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The students realized they were talking with someone who genuinely understood their struggles, not just someone offering sympathy from a distance. James, a 15-year-old who had been dealing with depression following his father's death, found himself opening up about his journey toward healing. He described how the school's peer support program had connected him with other students who understood loss and grief. Catherine was moved by his resilience and maturity, and she shared how important it had been for her to have supportive people during difficult times. The conversation naturally evolved into a discussion about stigma and the challenges young people faced when seeking help for mental health issues. The students were articulate and passionate about the need for greater understanding and better resources. Catherine was impressed by their advocacy and their willingness to be vulnerable in service of helping others. Following the group discussion, Catherine participated in a peer support session where she observed students facilitating conversations about stress management and emotional well-being. The session was led by students who had been trained as peer counselors, and Catherine watched as they created a safe space for their classmates to share concerns and strategies. During a break in the session, Marcus, one of the peer counselors, approached Catherine privately. He thanked her for being willing to talk openly about mental health struggles, explaining that having someone in her position acknowledge these challenges would make it easier for other young people to seek help. His words reinforced Catherine's belief that her openness could have a meaningful impact beyond this single visit. The next part of Catherine's visit focused on the classroom initiatives the school had implemented to support mental health. She observed a lesson where students were learning emotional regulation techniques as part of their regular curriculum. The teacher, Mr. Thompson, had incorporated mindfulness exercises and stress management strategies into his teaching approach. Catherine was particularly interested in how academic subjects were being taught in ways that reduced rather than increased student anxiety. She learned about assessment methods that focused on growth rather than comparison, classroom environments designed to feel safe and supportive, and teaching strategies that acknowledged different learning styles and emotional needs. In one classroom, Catherine joined a discussion about goal setting and resilience. Students were working on identifying their strengths, setting realistic challenges for themselves, and developing strategies for handling setbacks. The exercise reminded Catherine of her own journey toward understanding her authentic goals and values. During lunch, Catherine ate with students in the cafeteria, continuing conversations that had begun during the formal sessions. The relaxed environment allowed for more natural interactions, and Catherine found herself laughing and engaging in the kind of spontaneous conversations that had been missing from her earlier royal duties. One memorable moment occurred when a group of younger students asked Catherine about her children and how they handled stress. Catherine shared age-appropriate insights about family conversations around feelings and the importance of talking openly about difficulties. Her responses were warm and relatable, showing a side of royal life that felt accessible and human. The afternoon included a presentation by students who had created a mental health awareness campaign for their school. They had developed posters, videos, and peer support materials that addressed common issues like exam stress, social pressure, and identity questions. Catherine was genuinely impressed by their creativity and understanding of effective communication strategies. During the presentation, Catherine realized that these young people were natural advocates who understood their generation's challenges in ways that adults might miss. She began thinking about how to amplify their voices and support student-led initiatives in mental health awareness. The final formal part of Catherine's visit was a roundtable discussion with teachers, counselors, parents, and community leaders about the broader challenges of supporting young people's mental health. The conversation covered topics ranging from social media impacts to academic pressure to family dynamics. Catherine contributed to the discussion by sharing insights from her research and conversations with experts, but she also listened carefully to the practical experiences of people working directly with young people every day. She was particularly interested in ideas for scaling successful programs and addressing resource limitations that prevented some schools from implementing similar support systems. As the official visit concluded, Catherine felt a profound sense of satisfaction that had been missing from her earlier royal engagements. The day had been meaningful, substantive, and genuinely helpful to the people she had met. She had shared her own experience in a way that felt authentic and appropriate, and she had learned about innovative approaches that could inform her future advocacy work. The conversations throughout the day had also reinforced Catherine's understanding of her own journey. Seeing young people navigate mental health challenges with courage and support reminded her of the strength she had found through her own therapeutic process. Their resilience and hope inspired her and validated her decision to focus her royal platform on this crucial issue. Before leaving, Catherine made a point of thanking each person she had met individually. She exchanged contact information with key staff members and students, indicating her intention to maintain ongoing relationships rather than treating this as a one-time visit. Her genuine interest in continued engagement was clear to everyone present. As Catherine's car pulled away from the school, she felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The day had been emotionally intense, but deeply fulfilling. She had successfully bridged her personal experience with her public role in a way that felt honest and helpful. The positive response from students, staff, and media indicated that her approach had resonated with people. The drive back to London provided time for Catherine to process the day's experiences and begin planning her next steps. This visit had been just the beginning of what she hoped would be an ongoing commitment to mental health advocacy. She had ideas for future engagements, potential partnerships, and ways to amplify the voices of young people who were doing important work in their communities. Most importantly, Catherine felt she had found her authentic voice as a royal advocate. The woman who returned to Kensington Palace that evening was confident in her purpose and excited about the meaningful work that lay ahead. The response to Catherine's return exceeded every expectation. Within hours of the school visit, social media platforms were flooded with messages of support, gratitude, and personal stories from people who had been inspired by her openness. The official video released by Kensington Palace, featuring Catherine's thoughtful discussion of mental health and her own journey, garnered millions of views within the first day. What surprised Catherine most was the depth and authenticity of the public response. Rather than the typical royal commentary focused on fashion choices or protocol observations, people were sharing their own mental health experiences and expressing appreciation for her willingness to address such an important but often overlooked issue. Jennifer Walsh, a teacher from Scotland, wrote a particularly moving email that reached Catherine through official channels. Jennifer shared how she had struggled with anxiety throughout her career, but had been afraid to seek help due to stigma in her profession. Watching Catherine's return gave her the courage to finally speak with her doctor and begin therapy. Her story was one of hundreds that poured in from across the United Kingdom and beyond. The media coverage was overwhelmingly positive, but What pleased Catherine most was that journalists focused on the substance of her message rather than treating her return as mere spectacle. Mental health organizations reported significant increases in calls to their helplines and website visits following her appearance, indicating that her advocacy was translating into real action. Dr. Amanda Foster, director of Young Minds, one of the UK's leading mental health charities, reached out to Catherine's team within days of the school visit. She had been working in mental health advocacy for over 20 years and had never seen a single appearance generate such immediate and meaningful public engagement with mental health resources. Dr. Foster proposed a collaboration that would become central to Catherine's ongoing work. The meeting between Catherine and Dr. Foster took place at Kensington Palace 2 weeks after the school visit. Catherine was eager to understand how she could most effectively use her platform to support existing mental health organizations rather than duplicating their efforts or overshadowing their expertise. Dr. Foster presented research showing the specific areas where celebrity and royal advocacy could have the greatest impact. These included reducing stigma through personal storytelling, increasing funding for mental health programs through high-profile endorsement, and reaching demographics that traditional mental health outreach struggled to engage effectively. Catherine was particularly interested in Dr. Foster's insights about young people's responses to mental health messaging. The research showed that young people were more likely to seek help when they saw mental health discussions normalized by people they respected, rather than when they were simply provided with information about available resources. Building on this understanding, Catherine began developing a comprehensive approach to mental health advocacy that would extend far beyond occasional public appearances. She envisioned a sustained campaign that would include regular school visits, partnerships with mental health organizations, and the development of new resources specifically designed for young people. The first major initiative to emerge from this planning was the creation of mental health first aid training programs for teachers across the United Kingdom. Catherine had learned during her research that many educators wanted to support struggling students, but lacked the training and confidence to recognize signs of mental health issues or respond appropriately. Working with education experts and mental health professionals, Catherine helped design a program that would provide teachers with practical skills for supporting student well-being. The training covered topics like recognizing signs of anxiety and depression, creating classroom environments that supported emotional health, and connecting students with appropriate resources. Catherine insisted on participating in the training development process rather than simply endorsing a program created by others. She attended planning meetings, reviewed curriculum materials, and provided input based on her conversations with students and educators. Her hands-on involvement ensured that the program reflected real-world needs and practical considerations. The pilot program launched in 50 schools across England, with Catherine visiting several locations to observe the training sessions and speak with participating teachers. These visits were less formal than her initial return appearance, allowing for more natural conversations about the challenges educators faced in supporting student mental health. During one training session in Liverpool, Catherine met Mrs. Helen Parker, a veteran teacher who had been struggling to help increasingly anxious students without proper training or resources. Mrs. Parker shared how the isolation of the pandemic had exacerbated mental health challenges among young people, leaving teachers feeling overwhelmed and unprepared. Catherine was moved by Mrs. Parker's dedication and frustrated by the lack of support she had received. Their conversation reinforced Catherine's commitment to ensuring that mental health advocacy addressed systemic issues rather than simply raising awareness. The training program represented exactly the kind of practical, sustainable support that could make a real difference in schools across the country. As the teacher training program expanded, Catherine also began developing initiatives focused directly on young people. She partnered with technology companies to create mental health apps designed specifically for teenagers, incorporating the insights she had gathered from her school visits about how young people preferred to access support and information. The app development process revealed Catherine's growth as an advocate. Rather than accepting a generic mental health resource with royal endorsement, she insisted on extensive consultation with young people throughout the design process. Focus groups with teenagers informed every aspect of the app, from the user interface to the specific coping strategies included in the content. Marcus Williams, one of the students Catherine had met during her return visit to Birmingham, became an unofficial advisor in the app development process. His insights about peer support and the importance of normalizing mental health conversations influenced the app's approach to connecting users with each other in safe, moderated environments. The app, called Mind Matters, launched 6 months after Catherine's return to public life. It featured guided meditation exercises, mood tracking tools, crisis intervention resources, and peer support forums. What set it apart from existing mental health apps was its integration of storytelling elements that helped young people feel less alone in their struggles. Catherine recorded personal messages for the app, sharing insights from her own experience and encouraging users to seek help when needed. These messages were carefully crafted to be supportive without being prescriptive, offering hope and validation rather than specific advice that should come from mental health professionals. The success of Mind Matters led to international attention for Catherine's mental health advocacy. Invitations arrived from around the world asking her to share her approach and support similar initiatives in other countries. Catherine was selective about international engagements, choosing opportunities that would allow her to learn from other approaches while sharing insights from the UK's experience. Her first international speaking engagement was at a youth mental health conference in Australia. Catherine spoke about the importance of authentic leadership in mental health advocacy, sharing how her own journey had informed her approach to this work. The audience of mental health professionals, educators, and young advocates responded enthusiastically to her combination of personal vulnerability and practical focus. During the Australia trip, Catherine visited several schools and mental health facilities, learning about different cultural approaches to supporting young people's emotional well-being. She was particularly impressed by Indigenous Australian approaches that integrated traditional healing practices with modern mental health treatment, offering a holistic model that addressed individual and community well-being. These international experiences expanded Catherine's understanding of mental health as a global issue with local variations. She began advocating for increased collaboration between countries and organizations working on youth mental health, using her platform to connect innovative programs and share successful approaches across borders. Meanwhile, in the UK, Catherine's advocacy work was generating measurable outcomes beyond public awareness. Government funding for school-based mental health programs increased significantly, partly due to the attention her work had brought to these issues. The teacher training program she had helped develop was being implemented in over 500 schools, with plans for national expansion. Perhaps most importantly, young people themselves were becoming more actively engaged in mental health advocacy. Inspired by Catherine's example of using personal experience to help others, teenagers across the country were starting peer support groups, organizing awareness events, and sharing their stories to reduce stigma. Emma Richardson, the 16-year-old from Yorkshire whose story had resonated with Catherine during her research phase, wrote a letter describing how the increased openness about mental health had changed her school environment. Students were more willing to discuss their struggles, teachers were better equipped to respond supportively, and the overall culture had shifted toward recognizing mental health as an important component of overall well-being. 1 year after her return to public life, Catherine reflected on the transformation in both her personal life and her royal role. The woman who had once struggled with the emptiness of performative royal duties had found deep purpose in advocacy work that combined personal meaning with public service. Her marriage to William had also deepened through this process. His support during her difficult period and his partnership in her advocacy work had strengthened their relationship in ways that went beyond their public roles. They had learned to balance personal authenticity with royal responsibility, creating a model that would serve them well as future monarchs. Their children had observed their mother's journey with understanding beyond their years. George had become passionate about mental health awareness among young people his age. Charlotte had started a peer support group at her school. Even young Lewis had developed remarkable empathy for others' emotional needs. The family's openness about mental health had created a foundation for honest communication that would benefit them throughout their lives. Catherine's transformation had also influenced the broader royal family's approach to public service. Her success in combining personal experience with advocacy work had encouraged other family members to consider more authentic approaches to their own charitable work. The royal family's overall engagement with mental health issues had increased significantly, creating a coordinated effort that amplified the impact of individual initiatives. As Catherine looked toward the future, she saw endless possibilities for expanding her mental health advocacy. Plans were underway for a major international conference on youth mental health, new research initiatives, and expanded training programs for professionals working with young people. But beyond the specific programs and initiatives, Catherine's greatest achievement was the cultural shift she had helped create. Mental health conversations had become normalized in ways that seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Young people felt more comfortable seeking help, adults were better equipped to provide support, and society as a whole had developed greater understanding and compassion for mental health challenges. The Princess of Wales, who emerged from her journey of healing and growth, had become exactly the kind of leader she had always wanted to be: authentic, purposeful, and genuinely helpful to others. Her story demonstrated that personal struggles, when approached with courage and support, could become the foundation for meaningful service and positive change. Catherine's inspiring return had not only marked her own transformation, but had sparked a broader transformation in how society approached mental health. Her willingness to be vulnerable in service of others had created ripple effects that would continue to benefit young people for generations to come. The video that had announced her return had become more than documentation of a royal comeback. It had become a catalyst for a movement that would outlast any individual involvement and continue to grow through the lives it had touched.